Well, bye.
It has been an adventure.
It sounded like the end, but for Elisabeth Shue, it was only the beginning of a much longer story.
Elisabeth Shue is here in the studio. Good to see you.
Good to see you. First of all, it was a movie with Tom Cruise, okay?
Yeah.
And my brothers love Tom Cruise.
In the 1980s, a generation of actresses became permanent fixtures in American pop culture. They were in cinemas, on cable, and at every video store counter. Their faces were everywhere, familiar to millions. But familiarity didn't always lead to longevity. Some careers stalled, some faded completely. Elisabeth Shue didn't fade. She was everywhere. For an entire generation, she wasn't just a star, she was part of the cultural landscape. This video explores a handful of her defining films, the quiet power of her appeal, and an unexpected shift in Hollywood that later brought her back into focus. Elisabeth Shue grew up in a stable middle-class family in New Jersey. She didn't come from the industry, and there was no sense that fame was inevitable for her. She began with commercials as a teenager, then moved into small roles. What she had from the beginning wasn't flash, it was presence. She felt approachable, grounded, and believable, someone audiences could instantly connect with. That authenticity became her signature. Unlike many of her peers, she was rarely reinvented from film to film. There were no dramatic transformations, no shocking image changes. She was consistently presented as the girl next door. That consistency made her reassuring to studios, casting directors, and audiences alike. She was dependable, marketable, easy to place. But it also meant she was rarely pushed into unfamiliar territory or given the chance to surprise people. And while that stability worked beautifully in the 1980s, it quietly placed limits on how she was perceived. Elisabeth Shue's breakout came in 1984 with The Karate Kid.
Yeah, I played on all boys teams.
Yeah, Rich, Karate Kid. She plays soccer.
Oh yeah, I had to pretend to be bad in the Karate Kid.
She played Allie, Daniel's love interest. It wasn't a massive role, but it was a massive film. Audiences remembered her because she felt real in a way many teen movie characters didn't. Then, in 1987, she led Adventures in Babysitting. This time, she was front and center. Warm, relatable, effortlessly funny, she carried the film with ease. It wasn't a critical sensation, but it resonated deeply with audiences and became a staple on television and VHS. By the late 80s, Elisabeth Shue was everywhere. You saw her in theaters, on cable, at the video store. She wasn't alone in this trajectory. Many actresses of the era followed similar paths. Ali Sheedy, for instance, was enormous after The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. Yet by the early 1990s, her visibility dropped sharply. Roles dried up and she largely disappeared from mainstream film. On the other end of the spectrum stood Michelle Pfeiffer. She had 80s visibility too, Scarface, Married to the Mob, but she broke through in the late 80s and early 1990s with Dangerous Liaisons, The Fabulous Baker Boys, and Batman Returns. She transitioned into more complex, prestigious roles and sustained that momentum. Elisabeth Shue existed somewhere in between. She kept working, but her roles weren't pushing her forward. The late 80s and early 1990s were lucrative years for many actors. The VHS rental market was booming, and films that might have vanished after their theatrical run continued circulating in living rooms across America. Elisabeth Shue was in many of them, always present, always familiar, but quietly waiting for the moment when the industry would finally see her differently. By the late 1980s, Elisabeth Shue wasn't on the sidelines of Hollywood. She was inside its biggest films. Cocktail, Back to the Future Part 2, Back to the Future Part 3, Soap Dish. These were blockbuster titles, not small projects. She was sharing the screen with Tom Cruise, Michael J. Fox, Sally Field. On paper, it looked like success, but the roles told a different story. Girlfriend, love interest, supporting presence. Always visible, rarely essential. Looking back, this wasn't unique to Elisabeth Shue. Many actors who defined the 1980s were trapped in a narrow creative space, not because they lacked ability, but because the industry itself had changed. The generation before them, Meryl Streep, Jessica Lange, Diane Wiest, had been taken seriously earlier because they were offered complex, adult material. The 1980s brought a shift in tone. Hollywood leaned toward lighter stories, broader emotions, and mass appeal. Depth was often replaced with accessibility. Risk was replaced with familiarity. Actors of that era weren't failing. They were navigating a system that didn't encourage transformation. By the early 1990s, Elisabeth Shue sensed the limits of that system and began to push against it. She stopped playing it safe. In 1994, she appeared in Radio Inside, a raw, independent drama that barely reached audiences. Then came The Underneath in 1995, a dark, moody crime film directed by Steven Soderbergh. Here, she wasn't the reassuring girl next door. She was morally ambiguous, unpredictable, and difficult to read. The films weren't hits, but the choice was deliberate. She wasn't chasing visibility anymore. She was chasing risk. And then came the role that changed everything. When Leaving Las Vegas was announced, many people were surprised Elisabeth Shue was in it. Not because she wasn't talented, but because it felt impossible to imagine her in a film this brutal. Leaving Las Vegas is not a comfortable movie. It's a story about addiction, despair, and a relationship built on mutual damage. Shue played Sarah, a sex worker who forms a fragile connection with Nicolas Cage's character, a man determined to drink himself to death. What makes her performance extraordinary isn't intensity, it's restraint. This is Cage's film, loud and devastating, but it doesn't work without her. Shue never competes with him. She never demands attention. She simply exists in the story, quiet, steady, heartbreakingly real. Nothing feels forced. Nothing feels theatrical. The film unfolds with an uneasy realism that makes everything feel dangerously close to life. Beneath Sarah's toughness, moments of raw vulnerability surface, brief, unprotected, unforgettable. It was the performance no one expected from Elisabeth Shue. And suddenly, the girl next door image cracked. The Oscar nomination that followed didn't transform her, it revealed her. It proved that the depth had always been there, just rarely invited to the surface. But Hollywood doesn't always know what to do with revelation. The recognition didn't fully reshape her career. The offers that followed didn't match the magnitude of the moment. She kept working, but she became more selective. She chose balance over frenzy, meaning over volume. She married, she had children, she redefined success on her own terms. Some people call that stepping back. It wasn't. It was survival in an industry that rarely rewards quiet reinvention. And in many ways, Elisabeth Shue's story isn't about disappearing at all. It's about something far more rare in Hollywood. Knowing when not to chase the spotlight and when to step into it.
Some careers end with explosions, others end with silence. Elisabeth Shue's never did either. Films like Palmetto and Hollow Man came and went without much noise. They didn't elevate her career, but they didn't harm it either. She didn't crash, she didn't vanish, she simply kept moving, steady, resilient, quietly present in an industry that often forgets people overnight. For a long time, television had a stigma. If film was the dream, TV was the fallback. But in the 1980s, television was also the launch pad. Michael J. Fox went from Family Ties to Back to the Future. Bruce Willis went from Moonlighting to Die Hard. Robin Williams went from Mork and Mindy to cinematic immortality. Television was the beginning. Film was the destination. Then Hollywood changed. Prestige television arrived. Suddenly, the most daring stories, the richest characters, and the longest arcs were no longer in cinemas. They were on the small screen. The hierarchy flipped, and Elisabeth Shue stepped into that new world at exactly the right moment. In the mid-2000s, she appeared on CSI: Crime Scene Investigation. Later came Cobra Kai, where she returned as Ali from The Karate Kid, not as a relic of nostalgia, but as a character shaped by time. Then came The Boys, where she played a morally complex figure in one of the most provocative shows of the streaming era.
Yes, major points.
How many brothers do you have?
3.
3.
Yes.
So are you the lone?
I'm the second oldest, so I had some power.
But you're the lone girl in
I'm the lone girl,
family?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I played a lot of sports growing up.
what'd you play?
Soccer.
Okay.
Yeah. I played on all boys teams.
Yeah, rich karate kid. She plays soccer.
Oh, yeah. I
She didn't go to television because film had rejected her. She went because television had evolved. There's nothing sensational about Elisabeth Shue's story. No scandals, no dramatic disappearances. Her career is defined not by collapse, but by timing, by when she entered Hollywood and what Hollywood happened to value at each moment. Some actresses of her generation were pushed into a different category. Michelle Pfeiffer, Susan Sarandon, and Geena Davis were given roles that redefined how they were seen almost overnight. Elisabeth Shue's journey was different. Slower, steadier, more consistent. And by any realistic measure, it was successful. Leaving Las Vegas gave audiences a glimpse of another possible future, a path filled with darker, riskier roles, not one she needed, but one that lingers in the imagination. What made her endure wasn't radical reinvention, it was authenticity. She didn't abandon her identity. She didn't chase extreme transformations. She didn't reshape herself to match every trend. She stayed recognizable. Across 4 decades, her performances remained grounded, human, believable. She built relationships, avoided burnout, and preserved the natural quality that first made audiences trust her. And eventually, that path led somewhere unexpected. To television that doesn't diminish experience, but celebrates it. Cobra Kai speaking directly to a generation's memory. The Boys placing her in a darker, sharper, modern narrative. These roles don't feel like retreat, they feel like arrival. They offer continuity instead of erasure, depth instead of nostalgia alone. And there's something quietly moving about watching actors we grew up with allowed to evolve on screen rather than disappear from it. In many ways, we're living in a rare era. The pendulum has swung. Television is no longer where careers quietly fade, it's where they mature. Seen this way, Elisabeth Shue's career doesn't feel unfinished, it feels complete. Shaped by its time, guided by quiet choices, and still unfolding in a space that finally understands her value. If you enjoyed this story, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. It truly makes a difference. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.